Hi, my name is Kate Kalvach. I'm a pop artist, songwriter, and true creative in all areas. You might even know me from my time on NBC's The Voice. Recently, I decided to stop playing it safe and live out my own lyrics. Give me less money, more time. I quit my 9-to-5 job with zero backup plan. Music is the plan, but I want to give the world more than just music. I want to encourage you to pursue your passion and purpose too. I'm challenging you to bet on yourself. Do something you've always dreamed about. Expect practical tips, encouraging stories, advice, and you might even want to pursue your wildest dreams after listening. She's a wildflower, wildflower. All right. Okay, so first of all,
nice.
I just wanted to say cheers. It's not sponsored by LaCroix, but I had to save that sound for our very first podcast.
I already opened mine. I didn't wait.
And I just spilled it on myself.
I'd expect nothing less.
Yeah. So this is the Kate Kalvach podcast. This is our first episode that we're ever filming. The purpose behind the Kate Kalvach podcast is, I love making music. I love writing songs, but I also feel like I have a lot of nuggets of wisdom I've learned throughout my life, even from being on The Voice and doing different things. So I thought it would be cool to just share, to encourage you guys as well to follow your dreams and do what God has put in your heart. In this episode specifically, maybe you'll just get to know me a little bit more. I've got Emily here with me helping facilitate the podcast. This is Emily Helms. This is actually my sister. She's a successful business owner. She has a photography business. She's also the creative director at Hope Connection Church, and she kind of does everything creative. So she helps me a lot with, she comes to shows with me, does photos for me. She's done all of my album cover photos and stuff, helps me with graphics sometimes and ideas and everything. So I thought it would be fitting to have her on the first ever episode.
It is an honor to be here.
Okay. Well, she's here. I really wanted to do a podcast, but when I thought about Emily, we talk about nothing pretty much all the time, but we somehow make it interesting enough that my husband will just sit and listen to us. And he started saying he's listening to the Emily and Kate podcast. So
that is true.
That was part of also why we did this.
Yeah. This is a trial run to see if the rest of the world enjoys listening to us as much as he does.
Everybody starts a podcast and it seems easy, but it's once you actually sit down at the mics, the stress begins. It just feels like there's this pressure.
It's everything is chill until you press record on the camera and then it's awkward all of a sudden.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Even when I film content by myself, it's just awkward. It doesn't matter if people are present or not. It's just weird.
It's hard.
Yeah.
But because of that reason, we thought it would be fitting to just do some icebreaker questions to get started.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, Emily, what's something that's on your bucket list?
Something on my bucket list. I never know what to say with this question because usually people say skydiving or something like that, and I don't want to do that.
I would skydive.
Yeah, I know you would. You also want to shark
dive.
Is it cage diving?
Yeah,
is that what it's
diving.
Called? Yeah, I do not want to do that. So I don't know. Mainly what's on my bucket list are certain places to visit. The places I want to go for photography reasons, but also just to visit. So Ireland is a big thing on my bucket list. I really want to go visit.
I would love to go to Ireland as well.
I know. Ever since I saw the movie Leap Year, fun fact, that's when it became a dream.
I showed you that movie.
You did.
Amy Adams.
Yep, classic.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess I'll ask the next question. What is the most adventurous thing you have ever done?
Probably going on The Voice.
Okay.
But also,
besides going on The Voice.
But also, I would say Matt and I, or Cowwitch as he's known, we are pretty adventurous, I feel like. We usually just end up finding ourselves in random things, but I'm trying to think of an example. Can you think of something adventurous we've done? I just feel like
when you guys had that long layover in Amsterdam, how you just decided you were going to explore, that was pretty adventurous.
That's kind of an example of just what we do.
Yeah.
We are not afraid to just go off the beaten path and do random stuff. So we had a long layover in Amsterdam, and I've flown through Amsterdam a million times and never seen the city because we, are trying to get somewhere else. It's where they fly you to before you get to check. And so this time we were just hey, we'll take a train. And apparently there is a train that stops at the airport, which It couldn't be easier. So we just got on the train and went straight into the city, got to see all the, tourist stops. It was like 5 a.m, so they were literally cleaning up the trash and there was nobody on the streets.
Wow.
So it was really nice.
That's really fun. How long were you able to explore and just wander?
I think it was like 2 hours or 3 hours.
That's nice.
No, it may not have even been that long. But it was a whole thing because we also put our luggage like in these lockers and then we didn't realize they were on the other side of customs. And long story short, we ended up having to go through customs, I think a total of 3 times. And it was terrifying because they were like, why are you coming through again? And but we made it through.
Well, okay, that's good. Glad you made it back to the U.S.
And we were like, we're just trying to get to our luggage. It's in the lockers. Anyways, so. That's funny. My husband has like a European passport and an American passport now. So like when he would go through should I even say this online? I'll have to ask him later. But when he would go through too personal. When he went through the European customs line, he would use his European passport and then to the US line it was US. Anyways.
Chaotic.
Yeah.
Well, you made it back. That's what matters.
Yeah.
And you had a good afternoon or morning in
early morning.
In early morning.
Yeah. Nice. So another icebreaker question. If you could meet a historical figure, who would it be and why?
I have no idea. This just seems so like lame to say, but for me, I guess he's a historical figure, but Moses in the Bible, I don't know.
You went
spiritual?
I went spiritual. I wasn't expecting that.
Well, because
mine was going to be Elvis. And you're saying Moses. Okay, fine. Moses, why? Would you ask him about the sea? I would. I mean, I'd be like, were there fish on either side? About the sea? Okay, so now you ask me another question.
Yes, this is the last icebreaker. So what you have done this many times in your life, what is your go-to?
Rarer than you'd think, but continue.
Yeah, okay. Well, anyways, what is your go-to karaoke song?
The worst part is I don't have one, and this is something that has recently come up, okay?
Yes.
So after being on The Voice, everyone asks you to do karaoke because you're at a party, or like we were just at Matt's coworker's birthday party and they broke out karaoke. Whenever you can actually sing, nobody wants you to, like I've sang before in karaoke and people get mad because they're like, oh, she's actually good, and then nobody wants to perform.
Yeah, it
right?
ruins the fun.
It ruins the fun. So anyway, so if my siblings are here, Emily and my brother, who he wants to stay anonymous apparently. Anyways, so our go-to is we don't talk about Bruno. We've gotten very good at this. Okay. I just burped in the mic.
Classic.
And I just did it again. All right. So anyway, so that's our classic. But like the other night I was at my husband's coworker's birthday party and they're calling me out to do karaoke. And I kid you not, I'm shaking. I'm stressed out.
How many people were at this party?
It was off and on, probably 20 or so people, but it was a come and go kind of thing.
Okay.
I hear literal whispers of, I can't sing if Kate's here. I can't do this if Kate's here. And I'm just like, I want to just hide in a hole. You know what I mean?
This is horrible.
And so, anyway, so what I ended up doing was Can't Help Falling in Love by Elvis. And it was
that was a very random choice, but
I know.
You sound good on that song. But
yeah, but I was like, there's a line there. It's like, should I show off? Should I goof off and just make them feel like I'm just like everybody else or something? Like, what do you do in karaoke? That's my question. Yeah. What does Taylor Swift do when they're getting her to do karaoke? Because you know she shows up somewhere.
Yeah, true.
They probably do the same thing to her.
True. She probably doesn't participate in karaoke. But maybe she does.
I don't know. It just seems like
maybe at a friend's party or something.
It seems, and then my husband was like, you know, for some people, they're probably going to tell that story forever. Like, Kate Kalvach from The Voice did karaoke. I know this happens because I've heard it, you know, but so am I just rude if I don't do it, or am I showing off if I do it?
Yeah.
Anyways, it's just kind of a hard thing. So
yeah, it is a weird line.
So that's my random long answer to that question.
Yeah. So. And then me and you, we do classic, like, High School Musical. That's our go-to.
If I have a partner like you, it's amazing.
It makes it different.
Yeah. And we can kind of goof off, but also sound good.
Yeah,
So it's fun.
Yeah.
People enjoy the entertainment. We do a little dance. But when it's just me and I pick some emotional song, it's just like...
Yeah,
it's
awkward.
So I don't know. I just literally froze, and I was like, I can't I don't know what to do. And literally 10 phones are in my face while I'm singing this song. And, you know, I'm like, anyways, it just wasn't my best performance.
Yeah.
So,
man, there's so many layers to karaoke.
So many layers to karaoke.
This was a loaded question. It got more serious than expected.
Yeah. Well, I genuinely wonder what you would want. Like, so if the viewers are listening, like, feel free to comment in and be like, what would you expect if you have somebody who you know is a good singer? Are you wanting them to sing, or are you wanting them to stand back? I'm just curious.
That's a good question. All right, answer that in the comments, would you?
Answer that in the comments.
Okay, well, I guess we can transition a little bit into the whole reason of this specific podcast is we're kind of just talking about you, Kate. We want to, this is a surprise to you, I know.
The Kate Kalvach podcast.
Yeah, so this first episode, we kind of just want to talk about you, talk about your life, and let's just kind of recap this whole year for you. Okay. So, started out with you auditioning for The Voice on a whim, and when was that? 2021. You get through the first round, and then you just keep going, and then you end up getting to the top 16, the lives. You were to think about the people you were in a room with is just nuts. I mean, the 4 coaches alone were freaking John Legend, Camila Cabello, Blake Shelton, and Gwen Stefani. Like, that's just nuts that you were in a room with these people, like some of the biggest names in music today.
Yeah.
And so you find yourself here, you get to the lives, get eliminated, come back home. You're still working a full-time job, and then you have various shows going on, and then you end up quitting your full-time job, and now you are pursuing music full-time.
Yeah, that's where we are now.
Yeah, and here we are with the podcast.
Yes.
So how did you find yourself here? How do you feel about how much that has happened in your life in such a short period of time?
I remember myself, and you were with me. Like, this is my sister, you know, so we've been together growing up, and we watched The Voice since we were little. I remember we would record it, and Emily and I would literally, like, I remember one time we made a fort and we were just watching The Voice. It was like Blake Lewis and Jordan Sparks.
Yeah. I forgot about that.
Or was it Jordan Sparks the same? Oh, no, she was American Idol.
But
anyways.
Blake Lewis, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Anyways,
yeah,
continue.
we loved Blake Lewis.
Yeah.
But anyways, I just kind of flashed back to those moments, and there was just this weird feeling inside of me of like, I'm going to do that one day. I just can't believe that God planted that dream in my heart so long ago, and he knew the exact timing. And even the coaches that would be there, and being one of the, you know, I loved Blake Shelton watching The Voice growing up, and I was in one of his last seasons. So it was like I could have been too late, or I could have been too early, but I ended up getting to work with Blake. And then Camila, she wasn't a massive, like, I wasn't listening to her music a lot, but you and I had just watched her movie A Cinderella Story or whatever. Yeah. And we loved it. We were just obsessing over her.
We were like, man, we're such big Camila fans. Yeah, we love her.
We like converted to Camila Cabello fans. So then I started becoming like really into her TikTok and her music and stuff. And so that's kind of a long way around of saying like just how the steps started to get ordered. And then all of a sudden Camila is a coach, and I'm like getting to meet her.
Yeah.
And I mean, anyways, it's just wild, and it feels like it was just God every single step. If I let myself really think about it, or if I stop for a second to think about it, I'm like, wow.
It really has been just such a whirlwind. Like, nobody could have predicted this. Nobody could have orchestrated this but God.
Yeah.
It's literally, like, your life is such a movie. It's like...
It feels like it now.
It's just crazy. Yeah.
It didn't always feel that way, but then whenever you get some perspective after a dream that's been in your heart for so long comes finally true, you can finally look back and be like, man, why was I so impatient? Why didn't I trust God? Why didn't I? But it's hard until you have that perspective to kind of, you know, be able to see that.
So, kind of backtracking just a bit. So besides The Voice, besides all that, just tell us a little bit about who you are. So, like, tell us about your husband. Tell us briefly how you met your husband. Tell us about your normal life, kind of.
Yeah. So to tell a little bit about me, I'm a pastor's kid, you know, grew up in church, singing in church. Always loved music my whole life, but mostly church music.
Yeah.
And eventually started to love pop music and everything as well. Country music. I remember growing up on 90s Martina McBride and stuff. Leanne Rimes. But anyways, so yeah, I grew up loving music, grew up in church, and then went to college, met my husband. He's from the Czech Republic. LaCroix is a bad idea.
I know. That's what I was thinking. I was like, why did we do this
all day long? Maybe we shouldn't be sponsored by LaCroix for this podcast. Anyways, I'm going to use this stuff. It's all right. But yeah,
all right.
Met my husband, and I just said recently, we're basically a Hallmark movie. We met at the end of November. He came to Thanksgiving. We started dating in December, ended up getting married around Christmas time. Everything was about Christmas lights and hot chocolate and going to the movies. And I don't know, it was just like Hallmark movie life. So we've been married 5 years, and we live in Oklahoma City. We love traveling the world. We go home to see his family a lot. My husband's also a producer. I write songs and he helps me produce them, and we kind of do everything together. Yeah. So yeah, and
that's goals right there.
Yeah, it's helpful. And I'm a creative in all ways. So I do, graphics, and I've done website design and video editing and photography and all kinds of things. So I kind of just dabble in everything. Yeah,
designing your own merch even.
Exactly. This is designed.
Sponsor.
Yeah.
Sponsored by yourself. Yeah.
Yes.
There you go. Now you know a little bit more about Kate, in case you didn't know. So now we can kind of just go back to The Voice. So you briefly mentioned how 7 years ago you auditioned for The Voice and it didn't work out. So what made you audition for The Voice again? What led you to even try it again? Because you weren't looking for this opportunity. It just kind of happened. So
I had kind of given up
about that. Yeah.
I had kind of given up on that because I had submitted a few videos throughout the years and, to American Idol and different things. But my childhood best friend, she's also my cousin, she sent me a text one day randomly, and it just said, hey, American Idol is doing auditions in Oklahoma City. And then I clicked on it and found out it was virtual, and I was being lazy. I was like, I'm not waiting in line again. I did that before, and it was horrible. So I was like, at least it's a Zoom call. What I did is I recorded myself, and whenever the American Idol audition was over, I was like, I literally almost walked out of the studio, and then I walked back in, and I was like, I'm just going to upload this to the Voice website on a whim, because I had a profile already from my many years of uploading videos.
Again, not putting much effort into this.
Yeah.
You're like, I already have an account.
It was literally a copy and
effort.
paste,
yeah.
And I don't even think I followed the rules or anything. I just uploaded that video. Didn't think a thing of it, but it is interesting. I remember Matt had fallen asleep on the couch, and I came out there and woke him up, and I was just like, I feel really good about this. But it wasn't because I felt like I was going to get through. I remember telling him, I haven't been nervous like this in a while, and it felt good to have that adrenaline of I was so stressed out. I don't know. It just felt good, this weird adrenaline of nerves. I think it was a few weeks later, I got an email that asked me to go to a Zoom call or something. And then there were several steps between them calling me to ask me to come out to LA for the blind auditions. And when they called for that, that's when it really felt real.
Yeah. And didn't you have to wait a while, for you to find out that you were even flying to LA? There was a time period where you didn't even hear anything. And so, again, you had given up. You were like, guess it didn't work out. Or
yeah. And so I don't know if I want to. I mean, it's my podcast.
Yeah, you can include whatever you want.
I can talk as long as I want.
The way you're like,
because whenever I've been interviewed by other people, sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't want to talk too long. Because
well, what's nice is you can cut out what you don't want. So
okay, so then I'll just go into this. Yeah. So I do remember. So I uploaded that video in August, and there were several steps I made through for the show. And it was around September or October, I believe October, when we went to a conference in Tulsa, a church conference. And literally the sermon was saying, you don't need talent scouts to find you. You don't need The Voice, American Idol. I don't know if she specifically mentioned The Voice, but I know she said American Idol.
Yeah, she said American Idol for sure.
And by that point, I had heard back from American Idol, and I knew I wasn't getting it, but I was waiting to hear from The Voice. And she literally said, you don't need talent scouts. God already knows who you are. God already has found you. And so I literally remember I dropped to my knees and I told God, I don't need this and I don't want it unless you have it for me. And it was the first time since the process had started that I like completely 1,000,000,000% like I laid it down, and I was like, I just don't need this unless it's from God, you know? And so then the irony is the next night of the conference, we are, you know, there's worship and prayer and stuff. And there was a unique moment where they asked everyone who's a worship leader to come up on stage, which this is kind of funny because my sister and I are worship leaders at our church. And so we thought they meant all worship leaders of all kinds. So we just start walking up on the stage. And then we realized it's a massive church conference, and there's only like 30 people on stage.
Yeah, it was very small.
and like through our heads, we talked about this afterwards. We're like, there's no way that there's only like 30 worship leaders in the room. Why are we up here? Turns out they were just asking the worship leaders of that organization to come up or something.
It was so awkward. I wanted to disappear.
Yeah, and we're just standing up there like, why did we do this? Why did we do this?
And people literally, no joke, remember we're asking
they're like, who are you?
They're like, I haven't met you yet. And I was like, there's a reason you have not met me yet.
Yeah. And but anyways, it ended up being a really cool moment where they were like praying for us and stuff, and we were singing. They basically had the worship leaders now sing as like a choir. I think it was Great Are You, Lord. And the leader of the entire organization it was a university. So he was the president of the university, literally locks eyes with me, comes up to me and he said, the dreams that are in your heart, you are going to complete them. But when you stand up on the mountain, you're going to say, only God could have done this. And so it was powerful. Like from night to night. Night 1, I surrendered it. And night 2, God said, okay, good. You can take it. You can handle it because you know it's going to only be me who does it.
That's
and so even and then I think it was 2 or 3 days after that conference is when I got the email of like I had made it through the next round. And that eventually led me into the blind auditions. And even with that, I remember I was driving to a workout and I was waiting to hear back. This was like the final step of the process. And I was driving to a workout, and on my way there, I felt like I wanted to listen to my Office Ladies podcast, but I felt like God wanted me to pray instead. And so I started praying. And again, I just surrendered it. And I was like, I don't need the voice. I don't need talent scouts, Lord. I give it to you. And then when I got out of my workout, I looked and I had a missed call from the Voice like producers. And then I finally it was like phone tag for a minute, and then like that they were like, hey, we've selected you to come to LA for the blind auditions.
That's just so crazy.
So tell me that isn't God, or how is that a coincidence, you know?
That's so cool.
So
yeah, wow, that's powerful. So you get the call, you're going to the blind auditions, like they are flying you to LA. The dream call, you know, like this is just nuts. So you get to the blind auditions and everything. So talk about what was it like when you're singing for all of these coaches? Like, again, I say some of the biggest names in music you're singing for. Like, how did you deal with that? How did you deal with the nerves? What were you thinking? And even, I don't know if the people listening to this have watched your blind audition, but you sang Rainbow by Casey Musgraves, and so beautifully. And, you know, you do all these amazing notes and they never turn around. It's just the song keeps going.
And you were there, by the way.
I was there in the audience. Me and my family, we won tickets to go see you for your blind audition. And we know where all the good moments are in your song, and they're not turning around. And we're like, what the heck? More time is going on. Yeah. And, you know, it's so stressful. And so you had 3 chair turns by the end of your song. Like, no joke, the last note. What were you thinking throughout that? Were you nervous the further it went on, or did you make peace with the fact, like, I'm just not going to make it through? Or did you still have hope? How are you dealing with that? So much going through your head, I'm sure.
If I'm like trying to remember how I felt because it was so fast, but so slow. It feels like time equally is standing still and going like at the speed of light. Yeah, I do remember though, the first coach I saw was they have you film like these things called jitters before your before you go on stage, and I was filming my jitters, which is you just walking back and forth looking nervous, you know, before you audition and stuff. And so I remember they were like, hey, maybe take a peek through the window, or not through the window, it was like through the doors, you could barely see through.
Yeah.
And I remember I like peeked through and I saw Blake, and it was my friend who was auditioning, and I saw Blake had turned around, and so it was like equal, like, oh my gosh, Austin just got a chair turn. And it was like Blake looked like a wax figure. It didn't look real at all. Like he just looked perfect. It was so weird. And the jitters were kind of fake because we had been filming those like all day. But in that moment, it became so real. And I was like, I cannot believe I'm about to go out there. I've watched this on TV so many times, and I feel like now I'm watching myself on a TV show, and it just didn't feel real at all.
Yeah, it didn't feel real. Even for your family who was in the audience.
How was it for you guys? Talk about that, because the coaches were facing you.
Yeah, so since we were in the audience before, you know, they turn around for the blinds, we're seeing them, and like the whole time you're singing, they're talking back and forth like, oh man, she's so good, so beautiful. And we're like, then why won't you turn around? Like, if you like her so much, turn around. And they were just going back and forth talking, because also we knew that like teams were filling up regardless. And so yeah, anyways, it was just nuts. So watching
I was Blake's first team member, according to the show's story. But my family had been watching, and let's just say teams were filling up.
Yeah, they were filling up. But anyways, regardless, we just could not believe they were just talking and talking like, oh man, she's so good. And I'm like, then why won't you turn around? But nothing.
Painful.
It was so painful, but I will never forget what it felt like when they finally turned around. Like, no joke, we all started crying. We were wooing. Like, I didn't feel like I was emotional, but I wasn't crying because I usually can contain everything. But something snapped in all of us, I think. I could not believe how, and everyone was like cheering and wooing, but we were by far the loudest people. And in the background, when they aired the show finally, you can briefly see us, and we're like losing it.
I wish there was a camera on you guys.
I know, me too. And there were people like that we were sitting with, and they were like, do you know her? And we're like, yes, even though we weren't supposed to say that we knew you.
Yeah, like back then everything was so secret.
It was so secret, but it was like, how could we not lose our minds that you just got a 3-chair turn?
Didn't you
at
say
your blind audition?
Our brother was like,
yes, literally, and he does not act this way at all. Like, he's a pretty chill dude, but again, like I said, something snapped in all of us in that moment. You performed at blinds, at battles, at knockouts, and then obviously your live performance. Was there a favorite performance that you had, favorite fit, anything like that?
It was favorite, but also it's hard for me to watch, which is my very last performance. Because it was my last chance song, and it was like, I pretty much knew at that point I was getting eliminated. But because of that knowledge, I told myself before I went on stage, like, you might as well give it all you got. You might as well have the time of your life performing. And I can see that in myself. I'm just vibing. I grabbed my husband's hand in the audience. At the end, I wish they got it on camera, but it was live TV, so I threw them for a loop. I like ran over and gave my husband a kiss.
Yeah, that was sweet.
Yeah, Carson Daly was like, I hope you knew that guy.
That was so funny. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So sweet. I don't know. That one I think was favorite just because I see how much I let loose, you know, because the nerves and everything just tie you up in those performances. So
yeah, for sure.
But also anyone, of course. Everybody loved that one, and I loved that one.
Yeah, and that was like a really impactful one, I feel like. Not even just for you, but so many people have reached out to you saying how much that performance meant to them. People were begging for her to release her own version of Anyone, and finally she did. It's out on Spotify now. You can go listen to Kate's version of Anyone.
Yeah.
So let's go back to February of 2023. Yeah, this was really fun. So you actually got to play 4 sold out shows at Blake Shelton's bar in Tishomingo, Ole Red, and you got to open for the winner of The Voice, Bryce Leatherwood. And from what I remember, it was initially supposed to be one show, right?
Yes.
You got a call. Blake had specifically requested you to open up for Bryce, which is so cool. You clearly made an impact there. But anyways, it was supposed to be one show. They announced it, posted it everywhere, you know, sells out like immediately.
Yeah.
So they call you, they add a second show. Same thing. Then they add a third show.
Yeah.
Same thing. It sells out. And then no joke, again, it sells out. And so they add a fourth show. What the heck? So you end up playing 4 sold out shows in freaking Tishomingo. What was
of all places.
Yeah, of all places. So what the heck was that like? You had never played a show like that before, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, just talk about it.
I've only ever led worship, really. I sang at like a couple weddings, one song, and then all of a sudden
one song,
you know, like they invite you to sing one song, and it was usually a worship song.
Yeah, classic.
So I'm like, I get invited to play 4 sold out shows. I think it was a 45-minute time slot. So I'm like, dang, I don't have 45 minutes worth of originals.
How do I even fill that?
Yeah, how do I fill that? But anyways, it was just so cool. I felt like a superstar.
Yeah.
I mean, and Blake's Bar, they treat you, I mean, you can speak to it.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
They treat
that
you
food,
amazing.
though, it was so
the
good.
Pretzels.
The pretzel.
Yeah, and I brought a massive team. They were helping me sell merch and stuff like that. And they treated all of you guys as if you were the main character.
I know. That was amazing.
And getting to open for Bryce, it was so fun. It felt like we were on tour, but we didn't have to do the whole traveling thing. We were just set up. And we have so many stories from that.
It was so fun. I mean, and even just hanging out, like we spent so much time with Bryce and his band, and it was a blast. And like I'll never forget
an absolute
I know, and I'll never forget the first night. It was actually Kate's birthday. Remember, it was your birthday, and so the last show, somebody that we knew, they brought you like a belated birthday cake. And so after the last show, we had like this massive celebration, and we were like,
we sang happy 4 shows to us.
It was really fun. And I don't know.
And then it was tornado weather as well. So we were like watching weather. And we were educating Bryce and his band on
they were so scared about the weather, and we were like, this is normal. And it was really fun.
And there was a sweet family from our church that like let us stay in their cabin that was near Tishomingo. That was amazing too, because the whole team, we all got to stay together, and we just
really felt like a tour. It was so fun. And so
we kept saying we feel like we're living in a movie. Every night felt like a movie.
Every night. It was like the energy in the room every night, and like
I mean, sold out shows, they just feel like nothing else.
Yeah.
Because since then, I've done a few shows that were not sold out, and they were not that fun.
Yeah.
And it's just, there's nothing like it.
I know. It was such a high. Like, honestly, it doesn't even feel like it really happened. It was just so fun.
And we were signing boots. We were signing people's, like, what all kinds of stuff. We were signing purses and hats and boots, and
it was
obviously
crazy.
Sweatshirts and shirts and stuff.
Yeah. But so, like, how were you? Were you nervous? Like, I know
absolutely.
Yes. And I remember we had so many rehearsals.
I was in a bad mood, too.
We had so many rehearsals, and, like, you know, it was a 45-minute set she was prepping for, but we were having, like, 4-hour-long rehearsals because she was just like, we have to get this right. And
I forget about that. Maybe I
was, like, falling asleep on the couch in the studio as you and David practiced, because I was helping with singing, like, 3 songs, so I had to be at these rehearsals.
Anyways, the first night, you know, you feel all the jitters, and you're like trying to remember what the set list is, and you're trying to remember the order, and what did I say? What do I want to say between songs and stuff? We were pretty uptight that night, and the second night we were pretty uptight, I think. And I remember somebody told us, maybe it was just someone on our team, because we were just hanging out at the cabin, and somebody was like, we just need to go, you need to go out there and just have fun.
Yeah.
So night 3, I remember David and I, my guitar player, we went out there, we just had fun, and that was the best. I mean, I felt like I was doing just what I'm meant to do. It was amazing.
You were like right in your element. I remember that night.
And we were just laughing. I mean, I remember looking at David, and it wasn't fake. We were smiling from ear to ear, like enjoying it, which I don't even know what that feels like, because I'm just used to, like, you stress, and then you get through the performance, and then it's over. Like, I am not dying to be performing. I like leading worship because I can sing up above to God. It's not about the audience. But here it's like you got to entertain a little bit. You want to say some jokes. You want to do whatever. And I had just been so stiff because I had so many lists of things I wanted to do. That night we just had a ball.
Yeah.
And yeah, that is like a memory I'll always hold on to.
It was a blast. And I remember even all of us afterwards, we were like, you guys were different. And like, not that the first 2 shows were bad, but it was so different. You guys were loose. It was fun. And it was like your real personalities were shining on stage also.
Yeah. And even bringing it back around to karaoke.
Yeah. Bring it back one more time.
Yeah. Like we, after one of the shows, maybe it was night 2 or 3, all the staff of Blake's Bar was like, hey, we always go to this place called the Tishomingo Ice House, which shout out to them. They're really nice to me. They have been following me on social media. They comment on stuff. Yeah. But they're like, we always go to the Ice House. And I was like, oh, well, I have, people underage with me and we weren't looking to party or anything. Yeah. When I'm singing, I don't want to drink alcohol. It'll just like dry you out. So anyways, but they were like, no, they just changed it. It's a restaurant now. And, people underage can go, which it was still basically a bar, let's be honest. But we ended up going. We were like, really fine. Yeah. And Bryce and his band went as well. And like, they started doing karaoke and Bryce did karaoke.
And may we never forget when all of you walked in also.
Oh yeah, like the whole
entourage came in, everybody was like, oh my gosh, it's Bryce, it's Kate. And everyone's like cheering. It was so fun.
The whole town knew who we were because it's a small town. And even if they weren't at the shows, they knew. Like Blake's team was in town, Yeah. And yeah, so that was crazy. And then me and my siblings ended up doing We Don't Talk About Bruno, our classic karaoke song. And man, did we light up the place.
Oh, yeah.
It was so fun.
The town of Tishomingo has never seen anything like that.
They keep saying, come back and do karaoke.
Yeah. And I remember... They were live streaming, remember?
Oh yeah, and we didn't
know they were live streaming, and like we weren't gonna tell specifically my parents that we went to this Tishomingo Ice House because we did have people underage,
Yeah, which it was a restaurant.
It was a restaurant.
I don't even know if
we were gonna keep it on the DL
because it didn't look like a restaurant.
It did not.
The activities didn't really seem like a restaurant. But there were kids like 16 in there, or 18.
Yeah. Anyways, but they live streamed, and
it was a vibe.
It was so fun. It was the best. Well, the next day is the next Ole Red show, and our family comes into town, like our grandma and our aunt.
Oh yes, I forgot about
they got to the show early, and so they were walking around the stores that were in Tishomingo, just vibing.
And they got coffee somewhere.
Yeah, they got coffee, and they were wearing Kate Kalvach merch, and so they went to some coffee shop. I think
my grandmother.
Yeah, our grandma.
She would be appalled to know about the Ice House that we were all in doing karaoke.
They were like, oh, Kate Kalvach, she was at the Ice House last night and they did an amazing karaoke set. And they were like, oh, really? So the first thing my parents asked me when they get to the Ole Red show that night, they're like, did you guys go to a bar last
night? For
karaoke? And I was like, So yeah, that was really funny.
So now it's all out in the open. And Ice House, honestly... We love you.
We love you. Like, I want to go back to Tishomingo solely for the Ice House. Like, we should.
Well,
I don't know.
I'll cut that out.
You do the Ole Red shows, and then in April, you have your big homecoming show. And this is your first show that you are the headliner. Like, you're not opening for anybody. This is like your thing,
Yeah.
So... like you had an opener. That's crazy. What was that like? Was that a whole other level of nerves and also think about like all the people that were there for you, like to see you, because at the Tishomingo shows, there was like a mix of people, there were people for you, people for Bryce, and then all of The Voice,
Yeah.
But this was people that love you, that support you. How was that different than the Tishomingo shows?
I think I was less nervous because there is something about feeling like everybody came for you. They didn't come for Bryce and they might like you or they might hate you. They came for me, So that was really cool. And it was really amazing. I was shocked at the support I got. And even now, I think I just talked to someone recently who told me they were there and they loved like my songs that weren't released, but I did them live. Cool. And it was somebody I didn't know. And so I felt like it was all my family and friends there. But now I'm starting to find out there were people there that I didn't know who like heard about it, online or watched me on the show or something. So it was really cool. And it was great, really like exposure as well.
Yeah, for sure. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before you quit your full-time job and pursued music full-time, all of like your fellow voice contestants, they were like hitting the ground running as soon as they got off the show. They were, you know, gigging, they were promoting themselves on social media, they're writing, they're releasing music, and you were doing that as well, but you couldn't do it to the same capacity that they were doing it, just because you were balancing so much, you know? So what was that like? Was it hard to not compare yourself to them? How did you deal with that? I'm sure that was difficult.
Yeah, the comparison was real on every level. I think all of us were going through the exact same thing. I think some of us felt like we were falling behind, and then some of us felt like we were really ahead. And then even now it starts to switch, and some people who felt like they were falling behind are like skyrocketing.
Yeah.
My friend Madison Hughes, who we did our battle together, it was really hard for her to lose the battle, and it was hard for me to watch her lose the battle because I knew like what an incredible artist she is. And now it's like she's been working really hard, and I'm watching her dreams start
She's
to
like
take
thriving
off
right now.
Yeah, like her new songs and then a few covers she's done have really taken off. So that's helping me see some perspective, because there have been times where I felt like I was falling behind. Definitely the comparison is hard.
Yeah.
And I've had to like, at times, honestly, what I do is, and you know this is true, I will mute every single person that I follow. I don't care if they're my best friend. If it's causing me to compare myself and I can't find myself being happy for them, I just have to take a break, because no matter how happy I am for everyone who I was on the show with, it's hard when you see them getting to do stuff you wish you were doing. And it's like, yes, I am happy for them, but there's a line where I have to be careful that I'm not consuming it too much to where I'm like comparing it to myself.
Dang.
I think we're not honest enough with ourselves. Like, we think we're cheering people on, but we're really like hurting ourselves by consuming all the good from everybody else.
Yeah.
So that's just some advice I would give. If you find yourself kind of like stuck in that comparison zone, you don't have to unfollow people, because then it's like shade. But just muting people helps you, and it's like for your own sanity.
Yeah. And ultimately that's what matters. And like that person isn't even being affected.
No, they have no idea.
They don't even know that you muted them. Like, I'm pretty sure you've muted me before. You've just like muted everybody.
I don't know.
Well, even if you have, I'm not personally offended. You know, it's like, I agree that we're not honest with ourselves about that.
And just to say something else too, I went from having no friends in the music industry, I didn't know anybody who was doing this, to now it feels like everyone I follow is somebody doing music.
Yeah.
And they're not posting the days, and I'm not posting the days where you're sitting around crying, feeling sorry for yourself because you don't have a record deal or you don't have this and that. But they are posting every time something big happens, just like I was posting another show sold out. I'm opening for the winner of The Voice. When I was doing that, I'm sure everyone on my season was wondering, like, why didn't I get asked to open for Bryce? Right? So, but now that's over, and I'm having to watch everyone else get signed to a record label, and I'm having to watch everybody else get ahead. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, you just have to be real with the fact that like you're consuming a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of stuff to take
That's
in.
So
it's
true.
just celebrate, 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 celebrate. And you're sitting at home feeling like I have nothing to celebrate.
Yeah.
I remember like it took some people forever to get verified.
Yeah.
I was one of them. And you're just waiting to get verified. So you feel like everybody else is ahead. Everybody else has a, must have an in. How do I get verified? It's just like a constant thing. And then one day when we're all super successful, it's going to be, why did they win a Grammy and I didn't? It's always going to be
there's
that
always
way.
Something like that.
I'm thinking of Morgan Wallen, who hasn't been nominated for a Grammy, and he deserves one.
Yeah.
Like, he deserves 10 Grammys, in my opinion.
He does.
But anyways, I guess I'm saying all that to say I'm still learning from it, but some things that have helped me is muting people and just honestly like turning off my phone and putting it in a drawer.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, there's been many days I'll try to reach out to her, and I'm like texting her about something random, and then she responds to me at like 9 p.m. that night, and she's like, sorry, I had my phone off all day.
Yeah,
so
I do that.
She
I
does
need to
do
get
this.
better at it. I haven't done it in a while.
I should do that too. So what was it that made you decide, like, I really feel like I want to do this full time, music? Like, it's what I want to pursue. It's what I'm passionate about. Was it while you were on the show that you kind of felt that? Or was it after you got home and started, thinking about, trying to balance your normal job and then also music, because both were so consuming.
Yeah.
And so
I was extremely grateful to have my job. They let me work remote and I was able to keep my job that whole time.
Yeah.
And then when I came back, I had kind of missed it. I love my job, you know? And so really, I didn't think about quitting my job until the summer of 2023, which is quite a bit later than you would think.
Right.
It was a journey of sorting it out with my husband and everything, and it just didn't make sense financially. If you don't know, I worked for my parents, and so I remember praying, because I was just scared to like quit.
Yeah.
And I was scared of like what it might do to our family and, you know, working relationship and stuff. So I remember praying, God, please, if this is really right, tell my parents.
Yeah.
And by the time I finally got the courage to tell them about what I had been feeling, they were like, we already knew. And I was like, God, you're just so good.
That's just like God.
And they already had made peace with it, kind of. They said they were waiting for me to tell them, basically. And so it couldn't have been more right.
Yeah. Dang.
So I think, it just kind of slowly developed. I think my husband saw it before me. Like, he really wanted me to go into music all the way.
Right.
But I just wasn't ready. And I was happy at my job and stuff. But it was like a slow fade of like God just speaking to me in different places and different things. And it just, my mindset changed. And then where we should have been scared of our finances blowing up and losing a whole income from me, we just felt peaceful. You know, like it literally was the peace that surpasses all understanding.
Yeah.
And I can't explain it other than that.
Dang. I'll ask you this. So for somebody who is listening that maybe they have a big dream, but it's a massive risk to take and they don't know, like, is it time? Is it not? What's a piece of advice you would give them or something you would say that has helped you through this time? Because, it's not just like a one and done, you decide and then everything's figured out. It's a constant, it's a daily, walk with God, a daily thing to surrender and figure out. So
my parents always say, follow the peace. And I think that's the first step. Follow where you feel God's peace. Second thing is look for confirmation in those things. Like I just said, I felt the peace about quitting my job in July, but I had to wait and make sure, like, God, are you speaking this to my husband as well? Are you speaking this to the people around me? Are you, and even back in like, when was it that we went to Michigan? Like,
that was like beginning of May.
Yeah, May. So even May, I was starting to think that.
Yeah.
I was starting to feel unsettled and like, ooh. And I remember in February, I was talking with the Dries. So I guess it goes back earlier than I thought. But we were in Nashville and I remember asking Caitlin Dry, how did you know when it was time to go into music full time? And she gave me some really good advice there. And I think she said something like, when I was working my regular job, it was like I couldn't stand it anymore. I just had to get into music. Like she said, I was just itching for it every day.
Yeah.
And so it was like a series of a long time. And I didn't quit my job until the end of October. So I do think that following the peace is good, but just because you felt that peace doesn't mean you should just rip all the stuff apart.
Just do it immediately.
Go. Yeah. Look for confirmation, and God will speak through people, and God will speak through especially the people who know you the best. They're going to tell you the truth. And that can apply to everything,
Yeah.
Even with like, if you're dating somebody and looking to get married and stuff, it's like, yes, follow the peace because you're gonna feel peaceful, you love them, but then also look for the confirmations behind it. What do your parents think? What do his parents think? What does your friends think? Not that they know all. It's that plus the peace. It's that plus what God spoke. It's not only one.
Exactly. Yeah, all of that is so good. Lots of wisdom coming from you, Kate.
Thank you. I'm trying.
So as we close, maybe you can just kind of reiterate like why you even wanted to start this podcast, because again, to some it probably seems random. You quit your full-time job to pursue music, but you're also starting a podcast. Like, explain.
I think, and I don't know. We'll see how it evolves into what it is, but my goal with the podcast is to inspire people and encourage people. So, and from a godly standpoint, but also just like from experience, So And I don't want to just be shouting out, here's my song that I wrote, but I also want to be able to give you something to latch onto so that hopefully you can do that thing that God has put in your heart or that you're dreaming about, you know?
Yeah.
It may not be songwriting. It may not be being a superstar. It might be starting a small business. It might be, you know, even you find yourself in some of these stories in some way. I don't know what it might be, but I just, I wanted to somehow pour into the people who are following along with me. So that's kind of the hope.
That's awesome.
And we will, I'm hoping to interview some interesting guests as well and kind of get advice and stories from other people. So that's definitely on the horizon as well.
Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, and that leads into kind of the last thing. Like, definitely we want to hear from you. Kate wants to hear from you about, like, hey, it'd be really cool if you interviewed somebody who does this, or I want to hear you talk more about what you think about this hot topic or whatever. She wants to hear from you. So
not just music artists. Like, if there's somebody that you think of who would be cool to interview, definitely let me know.
Yeah, for sure.
So I guess to kind of you know, reel you in a little bit, this is just an intro episode, kind of getting to know me, and I'm sure we will get to know each other much more throughout the podcast. And more people to come on the show. More stories to come.
Woo!
And hopefully no more burps from LaCroix.
We will know for next time. No LaCroix. Maybe coffee or something else. I don't know. Something with a vibe.
So this is the Kate Kalvach podcast.
It is.
Tune in again.
You can follow Kate at Kate Kalvach on Instagram. And what's your website? I don't know.
KateKalvach.com.
Oh, easy money right there.
So at Kate Kalvach, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, it's Kate Kalvach. And then what else? Subscribe.
New music coming.
New music is coming. We got some releases coming out soon. And and if you want to follow with Emily, she is Emily Helms Photography.
I am.
So check it out.
That's true.
Thanks.
Sweet. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the Kate Kalvach podcast. You can find me on all social media at Kate Kalvach. And just so you know, I have a lot of original music and covers released on all streaming platforms. You can find me at Kate Kalvach. Thanks. See you next time.